the role of social media and its role in what has that done in terms of reducing the amount of trust in government, and what do you think the role of big tech is today or government in regulating that?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this before as one of the elements. So it's a very, very, very important matter. I mean, obviously, you know, the sharing of information is a force for good. There is no question of that, and we know perfectly well that in places like China and Iran, that, you know, social media is strictly censored simply because it plays such a strong role in influencing people. That said, it has an overall power that we've never seen in our civilizations before, and it can be a force for evil as well. And I think that some of the manifestations of social media at the moment are such that we need to...
Social media has become a powerful tool for organising protests and spreading messages. Platforms like Facebook, X and YouTube play a crucial role in mobilising supporters and amplifying the voices of protest leaders like Tommy Robinson. Robinson's use of social media to organise and promote his rallies against Islamic immigration and other issues has highlighted both the potential and the challenges of digital activism.
Thousands of people have taken part in a far-right protest in central London this afternoon, led by activist Tommy Robinson. There's also been an anti-racist counter-protest nearby. Well, Sky's Martin Brunt joins me now. So, Martin, we've had these two rallies in London, not sort of, it was made sure that they wouldn't meet necessarily, but how have things gone so far?
Well, Tommy Robinson, the far-right activist, had been urging his supporters for weeks to turn out today. He said it would be the biggest day of his life and of theirs, and a lot of people did respond. Something like 9,000 or 10,000 of his supporters marched through central London, a short march to Trafalgar Square. He said that this would be a day when the world would finally listen to their voice. Their main chant was one of, "We want our country back." It was largely peaceful. It's not over yet, but the police feel that things have gone without any huge incident. There were, amongst his group of supporters, though, some very offensive anti-Muslim chants. During the afternoon, we did speak to some of his supporters.
I actually had most of my... The government that's installed are not acting in the best interest of the people. They're not even listening to what the people want. So I want to know what can be done about that, because it seems like you can't vote your way out of it. Whoever comes into power, they just operate under the same agenda, it feels like. So the people don't have a voice. So I feel like this is the best chance that people have at having a voice, is coming to a gathering like this. But I'm still not really seeing what can be done about it. No one's talking about that. You know? I've already seen this film. I want to know what can be done. That's why I'm here.
Today's protest is about everyone's dissatisfaction with how we're being governed. To be honest, people are just fed up with not having a voice. I know there's a lot of people say that this is a racist thing and all that kind of thing, but I don't see that. I just see ordinary people who are just fed up and don't seem to have a voice.
There was a counter-protest, far fewer numbers, in their hundreds rather than their thousands. Stand up to racism, that was the general banner for those counter-protesters, carrying banners with slogans such as "No to racism, no to hatred." We spoke to some of their supporters.
For me personally as well, to feel more hopeful and to feel like I'm not by myself whenever I'm, thinking how scary it really looks like to be alive like right now.
And we came from Eastbourne to make sure that, try and, show him that there is an opposition, and most people in the UK are anti-racist, and that immigration is important and a valuable asset to the UK.
I believe that we should be here every day, every time they come out, to stand against them, to show that what is this country about, what is London is about, is we are multiculturalists. We are here as people, as neighbours, and we all live together.
The Metropolitan Police had 1,000 officers on duty. They were at pains to keep the two opposing sides apart. That didn't always happen. There was one incident where one of the counter-protesters, rather provocatively carrying a big...
Tommy Robinson, a prominent figure in the UK, known for his controversial views on Islamic immigration, has effectively used social media to build a large following. His ability to connect with people who share his views has been significantly enhanced by the reach and immediacy of social media platforms. By sharing videos, live streams and posts, Robinson can quickly disseminate his messages to thousands of followers, mobilising them for protests and rallies.
I just want to know why it took 24 hours. We're delighted. Our next guest is a legend of broadcast, well, a legend of everything, really. Political columnist and legend in my mind. Trevor Kavanagh, welcome to Drive. How are you?
Hi, Kyle. I'm fine, thank you.
Listen, we set this story yesterday at 5:15 when we were on air, and it started, Trev, as I said to somebody, it started about, you know, this appalling footage, which anybody who saw it would be disturbed. And then out came this bigger story, and all of this stuff's come out of the woodwork. And then, of course, last night there were riots outside Rochdale Police Station. We heard in the last hour that the victim is a gentleman called Fahir, and his lawyer, I have to deliver this in a very straight way, has said that he now has a cyst on the brain. I don't know the truth of anything, but we got Richard Tice on air straight away yesterday, and I asked him if he was sort of terrified and shocked by what he saw. This is actually what he said. Have a listen, have a watch, Trevor. Hello? OK, don't worry about it. Sorry, Trevor, for some reason it's not playing again. Some apologies about that. Trevor, Peter, Richard Tice said, and I quote, I'm not shocked. I'm actually reasonably delighted to see that the police are doing their job. Thoughts from you?
Well, the thoughts that I have, Jeremy, is that we don't know what's going on because we haven't seen the full clip. And we only have to go by a few clues, joining the dots. And one of the biggest dots is the crowd outside chanting Allahu Akbar. What is this, a domestic? Is it some sort of assault that is unjustified? Or is it perhaps a local resident of the community taking justice into his own hands, attacking a police officer, I think a female police officer, I'm not sure about this because we haven't been told everything.
We have been told that a female police officer had her nose broken in 3 places, and I said something yesterday which, you know, I'm not saying it to get a reaction. If somebody broke my wife's nose in 3 places, I'd seek retribution. Sorry, I'm being completely honest. I've always tried to be honest doing this show.
Well, I think that's exactly right. So we have a police officer who has her nose broken more than once, it seems, by some brute who she was trying to arrest for some undeclared offence. And suddenly all hell broke loose, and one of her colleagues decides to take a little bit of rough justice into his own hands and gives the guy a kicking. Now, I think that when Andy Burnham rides to the rescue of the police in an incident like this, you have to assume that huge chunks of that clip, that were we to see it, we would think the same thing, that this was a justified explosion of anger by someone who saw something absolutely unacceptably brutal happening to a colleague trying to do her duty.
And I completely agree with you. I expected Burnham to slag the police off, but actually it was a very measured statement. We just heard him talking to BBC Radio Manchester. Hasn't put himself out anywhere else. He says that was part of the video. There needs to be a thorough investigation. And, of course, just to add it to you, Trev, and I mean, several people said this to us yesterday, it is an appalling look, but it is part of a much bigger video, and there will be CCTV footage, as Peter Cardwell said earlier, and what one needs to do is wait for that whole thing before assumptions are made. But I had a really interesting text just now. As with a lot of
social media platforms allow Robinson to bypass traditional media channels, which he often criticises for being biased against him. By directly addressing his audience through platforms like YouTube and Facebook, Robinson can control the narrative and ensure that his messages are presented without the filter of mainstream media. This direct communication fosters a sense of community among his followers who feel they are part of a movement that is often marginalised by the larger media landscape. The organisational capabilities of social media are are also crucial in planning protests. Informed. These platforms enable real-time updates and instant communication, which are essential for organising large-scale events. The ability to rapidly disseminate information helps ensure that protests are well attended and that participants are aware of any changes or developments. Moreover, social media can amplify the reach of a protest beyond the physical presence of participants. Live streaming a rally on Facebook or YouTube allows people who cannot attend in person to participate virtually. This broader reach can increase the impact of a protest, as the visual and emotional power of live footage can attract more attention and support. Videos and photos shared on social media can go viral, further spreading the message and drawing more people to the cause. However, the use of social media for organising protests is not without its challenges. The open nature of these platforms means that they can also be used by opponents to monitor and disrupt activities. Law enforcement agencies and counter-protest groups can track plans and movements, potentially leading to confrontations or arrests. Additionally, the same tools that enable quick mobilisation can also spread misinformation or incite violence, complicating efforts to maintain peaceful and lawful protests. Robinson's rally often attracts significant media attention, both from supporters and critics. Social media amplifies this attention, making it easier for journalists to cover the events and for the public to follow the developments. This increased visibility can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it brings more awareness to the issues being protested. On the other hand, it can lead to greater scrutiny and backlash, as opponents use social media to organise counter-protests and challenge the narratives. Protests also raises questions about the ethical responsibilities of the platforms themselves. Companies like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube have policies against hate speech and violence, but enforcing these policies can be complex. Balancing the need for free expression with the prevention of harmful content is a constant challenge. Robinson's use of these platforms tests the limits of what is acceptable, prompting ongoing debates about censorship, free speech, and the responsibilities of social media companies. Despite these challenges, the effectiveness of social media in organising protests cannot be denied. Robinson's ability to mobilise large numbers of people demonstrates the power of digital tools in modern activism. His rallies often draw significant crowds, and the images and videos shared on social media amplify their impact. This digital amplification helps sustain the momentum of the movement, keeping the issues in the public eye and maintaining pressure on policymakers. Social media also plays a role in shaping public perception of protests. The way a protest is portrayed on platforms like X and Facebook can influence public opinion and sway undecided individuals. Robinson and his supporters use social media to highlight their perspective, sharing stories and images that support their narrative. Conversely, critics use the same platforms to present counter-narratives and challenge the legitimacy of the protests. This dynamic creates a complex and often polarised discourse where different sides vie for control of the narrative.
His name rallies those with like-minded views, an army so passionate about his cause they show up outside the courthouse when he's inside.
Tommy speaks the truth.
About what?
About, I think you know what about. Islam, Sharia law.
Tommy Robinson fancies himself an activist and journalist known for provocative statements like this.
We don't have to stop radical Muslims, we have to stop Islam. I've caused a breach of peace, I'm being arrested.
A Facebook live stream ultimately got him arrested, reporting in his own way outside a trial covered by a publication ban. Authorities considered it contempt of court, but that's just part of the story.
This is a far-right, anti-Muslim activist with a history of violence and criminality who was sent to prison for breaking the law.
We don't want any more mosques in this country.
Just look at how Robinson first became known a decade ago, by leading chaotic rallies with the so-called English Defence League, a group promoting British values over what it considered creeping Sharia law.
Look around you, feel your strength.
Among his followers back then was Ivan Humble. He now rejects the group known as EDL, but keeps the tattoo as a reminder of just how enthralled he became.
There's nobody listening to me, and I found a voice in the English Defence League. If you self-brainwash yourself unconsciously, you don't really realise, because you're reading the same stuff, you just don't really realise that it's affecting you in your head. It's quite sad, but then...
It's the first time he returns to Luton Town Hall since the group was banned here in the heart of Robinson's hometown. In his old stomping grounds, Robinson channeled fears of Islam as a supposed threat to local culture. Then turning to social media, Robinson gained an overseas audience and a big boost from Canada.
What he says is clear and philosophical and liberal.
Like-minded firebrand Ezra Levant offered Robinson a platform on his alternative network, Rebel Media.
Who are you here? Who are you want me to hold?
Racking up millions of views with stunts like this.
You're scum. You're defending child rapists.
Antagonizing the accused and their families outside rape trials.
I'm here to expose people like you, all of you.
And blaming Islam as the source of the crime.
The fact that instead of talking about the individuals that perpetrate the crimes, he extrapolates that out and holds the whole of the Muslim community and the whole of Islam, all 1.6 billion, responsible.
His supporters saw his arrest as an attack on free speech. They marched in...
The decentralised nature of social media also means that protests can be more spontaneous and less reliant on traditional organisational structures. This spontaneity can be a strength, allowing for quick responses to events and enabling grassroots mobilisation. However, it can also lead to a lack of coordination and unity as different groups with varying agendas join the protest. Robinson's rallies often attract a diverse array of participants, some of whom may have different or even conflicting goals. Another significant aspect of social media's role in protests is its ability to create echo chambers. Robinson's supporters are likely to follow and interact with like-minded individuals, reinforcing their beliefs and potentially radicalising their views. This echo chamber effect can deepen divisions and make constructive dialogue more difficult. Social media algorithms often prioritise content that generates engagement, which can lead to the promotion of more extreme and sensational material. This dynamic can escalate tensions and contribute to a more polarised and confrontational atmosphere. Despite the potential for echo chambers and polarisation, social media also provides opportunities for dialogue and engagement. Robin interactions can help build trust and loyalty, but they can also provide opportunities for critical engagement and debate. While social media can amplify divisions, it also has the potential to bridge gaps and facilitate conversations that might not happen otherwise. The role of influencers and high-profile figures in protests is another important consideration. Robinson's status as a public figure with a significant social media following gives him a platform to reach a wide audience. His ability to mobilise supporters and attract media attention is amplified by his online presence. However, this also means that the success of a protest can be closely tied to the visibility and charisma of its leaders. This reliance on influential figures can create vulnerabilities as movements may struggle to sustain momentum without their leadership. Robinson's use of social media has also sparked discussions about the broader implications of digital activism. The ability to quickly mobilise large numbers of people raises questions about the nature of modern protest movements. Traditional forms of activism, such as organising through local community groups or labour unions, are being supplemented and in some cases replaced by digital methods. This shift has implications for the structure, tactics and goals of protest movements, as well as for the ways in which they are perceived and responded to by authorities and the public. In conclusion, social media has transformed the landscape of protest and activism, offering powerful tools for organising, mobilising and amplifying messages. Tommy Robinson's use of platforms like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube illustrates both the potential and the challenges of digital activism. While social media enables rapid and widespread mobilisation, it also introduces complexities related to coordination, misinformation and polarisation. The impact of social media on protests is multifaceted, shaping not only the logistics and visibility of events, but also the broader discourse and public perception. As digital activism continues to evolve, understanding its dynamics and implications will be crucial for both activists and those who study and respond to social movements. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and for more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel.